A documentary filmed on a phone in the Russian hinterland turned into a real bomb in just 1 year. It won an Oscar and a BAFTA. But in the very country where its footage was shot, it was declared extremist and banned. The Kremlin did everything to wipe it off the face of the earth. Why did the truth turn out to be scarier than any propaganda film? How did an ordinary school teacher, risking his life and freedom, manage to expose the most terrifying war machine of our time? And most importantly, how does this film expose the total degradation of an entire nation that has turned into a generation of fascists ready to destroy their neighbors? Welcome to the JustSneak channel. Don't forget to subscribe, because today we are plunging into the very depths. We are dissecting the scandalous documentary hit of 2025, Mr. Nobody Against Putin. Nobody Against the Monster. How the idea for the film was born. Have you ever wondered what a real fascist dictatorship looks like from the inside? Forget Hollywood. Reality is scarier. At the center of the story is Pasha Talankin, an ordinary school teacher from the town of Karabash. This is not Moscow or St. Petersburg. This is the real Russian hinterland, a depressed mining town at the foot of the Ural Mountains, where for years people see nothing but dirt, poverty, and lies on television. The idea for the film was born out of personal horror. When Russia attacked Ukraine in February 2022, Pasha watched his own school turn into a military training ground for children's minds within just a few months. Pasha Talankin is an amateur cameraman. He picked up a camera to document what was happening. He is not a professional director. He is Mr. Nobody, an ordinary Russian man who suddenly realized he was living in a Nazi state. Unlike his fellow citizens, he retained the ability to think. His recordings are not staged. They are a chronicle of a country turning into a totalitarian barracks. Why did this story become a global scandal? Because Pasha went all in. Shooting compromat on your own government in Russia is a death sentence. But Pasha didn't just film. He decided to smuggle this evidence to the West. He turned for help to Danish producer Hellel Faber and director David Berenstein. That collaboration became the beginning of the end for the Russian world as propaganda knows it. The director and the hero. Who are these people who risked everything? You know what the scariest scene in this film is? No, not the explosions. The scene where little children march with toy assault rifles and shout death to the enemies. Let's meet the main characters of this thriller, which, unfortunately, turned out to be reality. Pavel Pasha Talankin is a computer science teacher. He is not James Bond. He is a modest, quiet guy whom no one takes seriously. His biography is a story of constant risk. He was born and raised in the hell of the Russian provinces, but he didn't break. When the war started, his fellow teachers, terrified by the state, began turning lessons into lectures about the special operation. Pasha pretended to agree, while secretly hitting record. He is at the heart of a fascist system. His students are children who are already being brainwashed. If he had been caught, he wouldn't have just faced a prison sentence. He would have been hit with charges of espionage or discrediting. That would mean certain death or life imprisonment. The film's director is David Berenstein. It's his directorial work for which he won an Oscar. But the real director here is life itself. Berenstein simply edited and structured the horrors that Pasha filmed. There were no conflicts on set in the classic sense. The entire conflict was between Pasha and the FSB. Every time Pasha went out on the street with his phone, he was playing Russian roulette. Why is this film so important? Because Pasha is a mirror. He shows what any Russian could be if they had a brain and a conscience. But there are only a handful like him. The other 140 million preferred to wash their brains and become obedient soldiers of the regime. Filming process in hell. How do you film when the KGB is hunting you? Imagine, you're sitting in a classroom. Behind your back is a portrait of the dictator, and in your hand is a phone that is recording how children are being taught to hate. The making of this film is an act of both supreme heroism and madness. Pasha had no budget. He only had an old phone. He filmed with a hidden camera during lessons, at recess, at city rallies. The key difficulty was absolute secrecy. Pasha couldn't trust anyone. His own colleagues would betray each other to curry favor with the bosses. If anyone had suspected that the computer science teacher was filming compromat on the Kremlin, the mob would have torn him apart. This is where the real dirty truth about Russia is hidden. The film shows how ordinary citizens turn into obedient executors of the fascist leadership's will. The footage shows teachers with burning eyes telling children that the Nazis in Kiev must be destroyed. This is not acting. This is documentary evidence of a society voluntarily going insane. The pressure came not only from above, but also from below. Pressure came from neighbors, parents of students, random passersby. Problems with funding? Yes, there were. But the Danish Film Institute and producer Helle Faber took the risk. They understood they were working with unique material that had to be pulled out of this hell. Were scenes cut? No. There is no censorship in Denmark. But Pasha had to cut scenes in his own head just to avoid endangering the people he was filming. Even an accidental reflection in a mirror could cost a life. The plot. What did the news keep silent about? Russia today is not a country. It's a kill zone, a zone of total fascist dictatorship where even the walls of schools are soaked in blood and lies. The film runs 90 minutes. During that time, Pasha Talankin breaks down the mechanism of turning a human being into a biorobot. The plot revolves around his daily life. We see his classroom, his students. At first, it's just a school. But with each passing month, the walls are decorated with the letter Z. Children start bringing toy assault rifles to class. History lessons are replaced with lessons of hate. The themes raised in the film are incredibly heavy. First, there's the militarization of education. Putin said, "Teachers win wars," and the school obediently became a training ground for the aggressor's army. Second, there's the total degradation of the individual. The film shows people without critical thinking. They don't need facts. They need a narrative where we are strong, and they are weak. Why is the Kremlin so hateful of this film? Because it shows real life in the hinterland. No frills, no pathos. It shows how the authorities rob and kill the future of their own country, forcing children to prepare for death on foreign soil. This is not just criticism. This is evidence, scandals and bans. Oscar versus fascism. In March 2026, thunderstruck. A Russian court in Chelyabinsk officially banned Mr. Nobody on the territory of the Russian Federation. For what? For extremism. The irony of fate. The film that denounces fascism is declared extremist by the fascists themselves. The reaction of the Russian authorities was predictable, but no less savage for it. The film won an Oscar for Best Documentary Feature. It won a BAFTA. This is international recognition. But for Putin's regime, it became a red rag. The prosecutor's office stated that the film contained extremist symbols and propaganda of terrorism. And what was in it? A white flag, a symbol of protest against the war, and simply the truth that the Russian army is destroying Ukrainian cities. Now, distributing this film in Russia can land you in prison. The consequences for the participants are real and tragic. Pasha Talankin himself was forced to flee the country after the film's release. He faces criminal prosecution in his homeland. He has become an outcast to his former neighbors, who would gladly turn him over to the authorities. The regime is trying to create an information blockade, but the Oscar is an international tribunal that cannot be canceled. Dirty details and behind-the-scenes secrets. Do you want to know the scariest secret of this film? Its heroes are victims. But the most terrible thing is those who remained on the other side of the screen. There is no classic Hollywood fight between actors in the film, because there are no actors in the usual sense. But the conflict of generations and ideologies is off the charts. On set, Pasha Talankin felt genuine hatred for the system that surrounded him, but he couldn't let it out. He had to smile in the faces of his enemies. This double life would have broken anyone, but Pasha endured. What scenes might have been cut? Rumors say the initial edit included even harsher footage of torture and propaganda that couldn't be shown for ethical reasons, to avoid traumatizing the audience. But the secret connections between the participants, those are the links between Pasha and the Danish producers. The material was transmitted through encrypted channels, literally piece by piece, through underground communication networks. It resembled a John le Carré spy novel, and here we see the main setup. By banning the film, the Kremlin made a laughingstock of itself. With its actions, it confirmed every word spoken in the documentary. If you're afraid of the truth, then you are the criminal. Expert analysis. Cult status or oblivion. Look at the news from Ukraine. Look at Bucha, Mariupol, Kharkiv. Mr. Nobody is not a prediction. It's an explanation of how such things became possible. What turned out well? The film is brilliant in its simplicity. No pompous title sequences, no voiceover with announcer-like diction. Just the lens of a smartphone camera and the honest story of a man losing hope. World critics called it poignant and necessary. Where did the film fail? For the Russian audience, nowhere. They simply won't see it there. The regime did everything to protect the minds of its citizens from the truth. But in the global context, it's a triumph. The scandals only fueled the fire. Every ban in Russia increased Western interest in the film. It became cult instantly. This is a film as evidence. Evidence that modern Russia is a fascist state. Why will it go down in history? Because it's the first documentary from the front lines of the information war, filmed by an enemy of the regime from the inside. It's an analog of Schindler's List, but in the world of fakes and propaganda. It destroyed Putin's career as a reasonable politician in the eyes of the West. Now everyone knows who is who. A black hole where a country used to be, Mr. Nobody Against Putin is not just a movie. It is a cultural phenomenon. It is a black hole that sucked all humanity out of a vast country. The film shows how the soul dies. First, the teacher who is afraid to tell the truth dies. Then, the student who goes off to kill dies. And finally, the country that calls this patriotism dies. Denmark, the Czech Republic, and Germany gave this film life. But its heart beats in the dirty, rusted town of Karabakh, where an ordinary guy named Pasha risked everything so that you and I could know the truth. Here on the JustSneak channel, we believe this film is an indictment against the regime. Don't watch it if you want to keep your faith in humanity, but definitely watch it if you want to understand what a real fascist occupation looks like from the inside. Did this cinema raise a generation? No. It exposed a generation of degenerates ready to kiss the boots of murderers. Hit the like button if the truth matters more to you than fakes. Subscribe so you don't miss new investigations. And in the comments, tell us, how much longer do you think this fascist regime will last, when even its own teachers start filming its crimes on their phones?